Hey, how's it going everybody? Welcome back to Aussie Fish Keeping. So in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the top 7 best beginner-friendly aquarium fish. So for this list, I've picked out 7 of my absolute favorite aquarium fish that I would highly recommend for any beginner. All of these species are so easy to care for, they require little to no effort when it comes to water parameters, and they are just super awesome fish to look after. But without any further ado, let's just jump straight into today's video with the first fish on our list. So as for our first fish today, we have one that I don't think is going to come as a surprise. We have guppies. So guppies are obviously one of the easiest fish to look after. Not only are they easy to look after, but they are also really easy to breed, which is why a lot of people actually get them in the first place. Along with that, they are also just super beautiful fish, and they come in a variety of different colors, and you can get all sorts of fin shapes and patterns as well. So as for your water parameters for your guppies, they do like a higher pH just because they are a live bearer. So if you can keep the pH at around 6 to 8, that's going to be great for them. And you're going to want to keep the temperature between 18 to 24 degrees Celsius. So these guys don't need a heater in their aquarium whatsoever. But if you are looking to keep them in a heated tank, just make sure it doesn't exceed over 24 degrees Celsius. So as for diet for these guys, it's really important to give them a varied diet. So not only do you want to give them a high quality dry food, but you're also going to want to feed them live foods and frozen foods. And things I would recommend are things like live baby brine shrimp, live mosquito larvae, and live daphnia. And you can also feed all 3 of those frozen, or if there's any other smaller frozen foods that you'd like as well. As for tank setting, guppies always love clean water just because they have really long flowing fins, and those fins can develop fin rot quite quickly in unsanitary environments. So keeping the water as clean as possible is obviously best. Now in saying that, they are very hardy and they can live in quite dirty water, but if you are looking for the healthiest guppies you can possibly get, I would just recommend keeping them in clean water. And you're also going to want a lot of really bushy plants in there. So obviously guppies are a live bearing fish, and this does mean they give birth to live young. So having bushy plants in there gives the live young somewhere to seek refuge if they are getting chased by the older fish. And this is going to increase the survival rate of your fry, just because if the parents do find them, they will 100% eat them. So having the bushy plants in there as shelter is always best. And then as for tank mates for your guppies, they are very versatile fish, and they can go with a wide variety of tank mates. So things like tetras, Corydora Catfish, Bristlenose Catfish, endlers, and rasboras. But with that being said, the first beginner-friendly aquarium fish on our list today is guppies. So moving on to the next fish on our list, we actually don't have a fish, but it is an aquatic invertebrate. We have cherry shrimp. So cherry shrimp are by far one of the coolest little additions you can get for your aquarium if you are a beginner. So not only are they a lot more unique than just your average fish, but they also come in a variety of different colors, and you can get all sorts of eye-catching colors like red, orange, yellow, green, blue. And they are all just as easy as one another to care for. So as for water parameters for your cherry shrimp, you're going to want a pH of around 6.5 to 7.5, and you're going to want a temperature of around 20 to 24 degrees Celsius. So you can have a heater in there. I don't personally keep mine with heaters, and they do perfectly fine, but again, it's just up to how you want to keep your cherry shrimp. They can do well in a heated environment, but they can also do perfectly fine in an unheated environment. As for diet for your cherry shrimp, any sort of sinking shrimp pellets or algae wafers make a great diet for these guys. So as well as that, you can also throw in botanicals, and what these botanicals will do is they'll grow a small layer of biofilm over the top of them, and the cherry shrimp will graze off that biofilm throughout the day. And additionally, they will also go around your aquarium and eat a little bit of the surface algae that's growing. As for tank setting for these guys, it is important that you add some source of calcium, so whether that be cuttlebone or dry coral, it's just something to add in there, and it will just help them gain a nice strong exoskeleton when they molt. And it's also great to throw in a sponge filter. So this sponge filter will be a little breeding ground for all sorts of microorganisms, and it will also house a lot of biofilms, which obviously your cherry shrimp will eat throughout the day. And another great thing to add in your cherry shrimp aquarium is a lot of plants, particularly bushy plants, just because these guys are a prey item, and having a lot of shelter in there does make them feel a lot safer, and you will get the best colors out of them that way, and you can also find some breeding going on. And then as for tank mates, there's not too many things you can keep these guys with, but two I would highly recommend are rasboras and endlers. But with that being said, cherry shrimp are the second beginner-friendly aquarium fish on our list today, and I would highly recommend them. Moving on to the next fish on our list, we have a super cool little catfish. We have Corydora Catfish. So Corydora Catfish are a little bottom-dwelling fish, and they come in a variety of different colors and patterns. There's a bunch of species out there, and most of them are quite easy to care for. So the three main ones you'll see in your aquarium store is your albino cory, bronze cory, and peppered cory. So your albino and bronze cory are practically the same thing, it's just that one is albino and one's just got the normal color. And then your peppered cory is a different species altogether, but they are also very easy to look after. So as for the water parameters for your Corydora Catfish, you're going to want a pH of around 6.5 to 7.5, and you're going to want a temperature of around 20 to 26 degrees Celsius. So it is definitely beneficial to keep them with a heater. A lot of the times you can get away without a heater in there, especially if you are just keeping your albino, bronze, or peppered cory, but I would just recommend going ahead and getting a heater. It will just lead to a lot happier and healthier fish. So as for diet for these guys, they love live black worms or any live food that sinks down to the bottom. And as well as that, frozen foods that sink down to the bottom and dry foods that sink down to the bottom also make great staples in their diet. As for tank setting, it's always great to keep them on a soft substrate with clean water, and this is just going to prevent any nicks or cuts in their barbels, which are their whiskers, and the clean water is also going to help if there is any nicks and cuts. It's going to prevent any infection in that cut. And then as for tank mates, these guys are one of the most peaceful fish out there, so you can keep them with bristlenose, tetras, barbs, rasboras, guppies, and also all sorts of American cichlids. But with that being said, Corydora Catfish are another great beginner-friendly fish, and I would highly recommend them. Moving on to the next fish on our list, we have another live bearer. Actually, we have mollies. So mollies are another super colorful little live bearer, and they are actually related to the guppies. So as for water parameters, they too like a higher pH. Anything around 7 to 8 is best. And as for temperature, anything from 19 to 24 degrees Celsius should suit them. Again, they don't have to be kept in a heated aquarium. It's just if you are keeping them in a heated aquarium, you want to make sure that the water doesn't get too hot. As for diet, just like the guppies, live baby brine shrimp, live daphnia, and live mosquito larvae all make great staples, and obviously you're also going to want to feed them dry foods and frozen foods as well. And then as for tank setting, again, a lot like the guppies, clean water and plants, just because obviously being a live bearer, they will give birth to the live young, and those live young will need somewhere to hide. And then as for tank mates, guppies, swordtails, platies, bristlenose, corydoras, and tetras all make great tank mates. There's a bunch of others out there as well. But yeah, mollies are definitely another great beginner-friendly aquarium fish, and I would also highly recommend them. Moving on to the next fish on our list, we have a super fast-moving topwater aquarium fish, and I've actually got a few here behind me. We have Danos. So not only are Danos a great beginner fish, but they're also a great beginner breeder fish. So if you are looking for a little bit of a challenge when it comes to breeding, say you've just bred like guppies or a live bearer like that, and you want to expand your fish breeding, I would recommend getting a group of Danos, just because they are super fun to breed and they're very easy to breed, and it's just a super fun process. As for the water parameters for your Danos, they themselves are super hardy, so a pH of anywhere between 6 to 7 is perfectly fine, and a temperature of around 20 to 24 degrees Celsius is best. Now these guys too don't need a heater whatsoever, but it is recommended you do keep them with one. I myself don't really keep them with a heater, and I find they are perfectly fine. They are a cold water fish, and they do like the cold water conditions, so a heater is definitely not necessary whatsoever. As for diet, it's also important to mix up their diet, so they will eat pretty much anything you throw in their tank, whether it be frozen foods, dry foods, or live foods. It just depends what you want to feed your Danos. I personally feed mine a lot of dry food along with a lot of mosquito larvae and other live foods like that. And as for tank setting, it's great to keep them in an aquarium with a lot of swim space. So you might be able to see behind me here, these guys do swim a lot, and you do need a lot of space for them to swim in. You also want a lid on your aquarium, just because these guys can jump a lot. So if you don't have a lid, they might just jump out, which definitely isn't good. As for tank mates, they can be a little bit nippy, so you do want to keep them with either fast water fish or bottom dwelling fish. So things like Bristlenose, Corydora Catfish, barbs, and tetras all make great tank mates for them. But with that being said, Danos are definitely another great option if you are a beginner and looking for your first fish. Moving on to the next fish on our list, we have a super cool algae eating fish. We have Bristlenose. So Bristlenose are a super unique little fish, and they are so good to have in your aquarium. They do help out a lot when it comes to algae control. So as for your water parameters for your Bristlenose, you're going to want the pH to be around 6.5 to 7.5 and the temperature to be around 20 to 26 degrees Celsius. And then as for diet, any sort of sinking frozen foods or sinking live foods like black worms are great. But the main staple in their diet should be algae, so algae wafers, and they will just go around and eat a bunch of algae off your aquarium as well. And you can also go ahead and throw in some zucchini or green beans every now and then as well, and they will definitely eat that too. So it is important you do remember to feed these guys. A lot of the time they are sold as cleaner fish, so a lot of people think you can just throw them in there and they'll just eat algae and survive off that. So obviously they will eat your algae, but it's also important to throw in food for them quite consistently. As for tank setting, you're going to want good filtration just because these guys can produce a lot of waste. As for tank mates, you can keep them with Corydora Catfish, tetras, barbs, rasboras, denios, minnows, all sorts of different fish like that. They are super peaceful, and you can keep them with quite a variety of different species. But with that being said, Bristlenose catfish are another great beginner-friendly fish, and I would highly recommend them. And then moving on to the final fish on our list, we have our final live bearer. We have endlers. So endlers do look a little bit different than guppies. They have a lot more color on their body, and they don't usually have long or big flowing fins. So as for your water parameters for your endlers, you're going to want a pH of around 6.5 to 7.5 and a temperature of around 19 to 24 degrees Celsius. So endlers also don't need a heater in there whatsoever, and they can do perfectly fine in an unheated environment. As for diet, frozen foods and small dry foods, along with live foods like baby brine shrimp and daphnia, all make great staples in their diet, and it's always great to mix up their diet as well. And then as for tank setting, I would recommend throwing in a bunch of plants. So these guys won't really eat their fry like the others just because they are a lot smaller and their mouth is a lot smaller. But plants are just very beneficial to throw in there, and they really do enjoy having a lot of coverage. And then as for tank mates, Corydora Catfish, Bristlenose, tetras, and all sorts of small fish like that all make great tank mates for them. That said, these guys are another great addition into any small aquarium, and I would also highly recommend the endlers. However, that is going to bring us to the end of today's video, so I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope I helped any new beginners out there find their very first aquarium fish. If you did enjoy today's video and you haven't done so already, please make sure to go down and subscribe, and while you're down there, comment your thoughts on today's video. I always go down there and read them all, and I reply back to every comment I see. If you haven't already, make sure to go check out my Facebook page and Facebook community group, and you can also go check out my Instagram as well. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in that next video.